All right, bang, bang. Today is Tuesday. It is April 5th. Welcome to the Dog Walk, presented by Barstool Sports. It's myself. It's Chief. Chief, how are you today?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Refreshed. It's Monday. Had a nice little lazy weekend.
Are you? I heard you got bogged down in a 4-hour macro dosing, I heard.
Yeah, it ended up being like, I think Dave went for 4 hours. I went for an hour and a half. Dante and I were both on, and Dante bailed after like 45 minutes because he had somewhere to be, and I went as long as I could, which was like an hour and a half, and then we had to do this. So yeah, those guys, they like get in a comfy chair if you're going to be a macrodosing, because you're going to be sitting there for a while. But it's a fun show.
Marathoners,
Yeah.
They're marathoners.
Yep.
It is a fun show. It's kind of in the same realm of this show.
Yeah.
It's Tuesdays, I should say.
Yeah, so they I don't know how I'm admittedly not super familiar with it because I simply just don't have time for podcasts right now because we do so much of these.
Yeah.
But they, like, the way it went today, at least, we had like a generic subject of plastics because they asked me on it after we had done our episode last week, and then we don't really talk about plastics. We talk about all sorts of different things and capitalism and, like, fucking energy. They're just bouncing all over the place, and
Random
it's
shit.
Yeah, and it's T and Billy are, they're funny. They're kind of funny. So, and then Arian Foster is a very unique guy. I liked him a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, you shouldn't consume plastics if it's in your control, but you should consume some JP Graziano's.
The best.
How about that?
So, true story. I was at the Blackhawks game last night with one buddy and then some random people, actually in the suite, not to brag. And this guy had no idea really what Barstool was. And he's like, what I did on Saturday is that I was just like, had a hard couple of days. He just had a baby. He's not really sleeping. He's like, I went over to JP Graziano's and I got 4 different subs because I just needed that comfort. And it was just like, just talking. Like, he had no idea who I was or Barstool or whatever. It was not like some kind of thing he fed for me. It was just like, I needed really good food. I needed comfort food. I needed to just be able to stack it in my fridge. And he's like, I had 4 sandwiches over the course of 12 hours.
Did he say what he went with?
He said I asked. He had a Mr. G.
Great.
What else did he get? That's the only one I remember.
Muffaletta, porchetta.
I think he had the muffaletta. I think he had the turkey one because he actually split that one with his wife. And that's what she gets.
That's nice of him.
I like the turkey too. I think there's so many like heavy hitters on that menu, but sometimes just a nice turkey sub goes a long way. And they do it very, very well with the peppers on there too. So it's great. It is like universally loved. And this guy, when he's at his darkest, lowest moment, hasn't slept in days, has the newborn baby, he just like, you know what? Give me 4 subs.
And you could do that too if you're listening.
Yep.
901 West Randolph, everybody, go check them out. Open 11 to 4 Tuesday to Saturday, but then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they got that late night window. Excuse me, I can't talk today. So go check that out. They're there for you. It's great. And go to tasterealchicago.com and get a beef kit.
So the other thing is, this guy that I met, the 4 subs guy, we should think about having him on.
Oh, yeah?
He is the great-grandson of the former president of Mexico, and his grandfather, you know how he left office?
Assassinated?
Casket.
Oh.
Assassinated, yeah. So it's a wild story, crazy family, and I guess they're like the Kennedys of Mexico, this family. So he was very interesting, like, conversations to be had at a Blackhawks game.
I would say.
Yeah. So
I would say.
Very interesting guy.
You don't just run into that every day.
No, not at all. Yeah, it was fascinating conversation about like Mexico and
that is
how they've become what they are and all that kind of stuff. So interesting.
Very. Mm-hmm. So go do that. Go get some JP and buckle up for another fascinating conversation. And go check out Jim's Twitter. More events coming this week at JP Graziano.
He's been getting it out there a little bit on social media.
Yeah,
he had a good April Fool's prank.
Yeah.
He's been doing it big. I love Jim's social media.
Mm-hmm. Today's conversation, though,
we're talking Elon and Twitter and free speech, because Elon took his big old balls and dropped them and spent $3 billion acquiring 73.5 million shares of Twitter. And that's good for right now 9.2% of the company, which makes him the largest shareholder of Twitter by like a decent margin. So Jack Dorsey is the only other private individual that's in that stratosphere. the founder of the company. And he's at right around 2%. Elon's at 9.2. So big move. And it was one of those things where it's like, it was kind of going viral this morning, right? And the Twitter stock itself has taken off on the news of this. And I feel like Elon, he gets like he really flirts with the line with the SEC about how to push things forward and like what you're allowed to say and tweet. And like he's made Bitcoin and Dogecoin go crazy before. He's tanked some of Tesla's stock before, but being like, yeah, we're way overvalued. I think we're way overvalued. The stock goes down, he buys more back. But he just seems like a guy who tries to tell the truth. And that's one of the other things about this move by Elon, okay, is that he is also, now he's the largest shareholder, he is also one of the most followed accounts on the platform too. And he's very active on Twitter for a guy with huge numbers like that. He's got 80.2 million followers. It's
a shit ton. I want to say that there's only 100 and something active accounts, or accounts in general.
100 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I don't know what those numbers are exactly. Obviously there's more accounts than that out there, but yeah, 80.2 million followers. And if you just go through his timeline, every single tweet gets hundreds of thousands of engagements, whether it's likes or retweets or comments. He moves the needle in a way that, and I think this has been a complaint about Twitter and their board historically, is that all the people kind of making decisions for the platform aren't really active users of it themselves. So now Elon would be the most familiar with the platform of anybody that currently sits on the board. And there are a few interesting nuggets that I found out about this. So today we're recording this on April 4th, a few hours after this news
And I should
broke.
say too, sorry, there's a couple different articles here. It says 217 million monetizable daily active users.
Okay.
This one says 330 million monthly. I don't know. There's one. I don't know. There's a lot of numbers, but what's interesting too, and sorry I cut you off, but the amount of people that actually tweet
versus
the amount of people that have active accounts is astronomically low.
Crazy.
I mean, look at fucking our guy, Lord Harry Bagel. That guy
he's the king of the like button.
He's the king of the egg.
Yeah.
He's just I don't think he said anything.
That's just his real head. That's a picture of his
king of the egg.
Yeah.
He's just, maybe a Patrick Kane excitement goal tweet, but that's about it.
I think that's it.
Couple of Blackhawks tweets, couple of UFC tweets, and then just retweeting our stuff.
Yeah, that's about what we appreciate.
I always feel good when I see the little green icon of Harry popping up. You're like, oh, you like that tweet. There
Keep doing that. Yeah. But sorry, more nuggets.
Yeah, so he is quote unquote taking a passive stake, which meaning as of this moment, he doesn't have any board seats or any real on paper power with Twitter. But everybody is saying that is this is the tip of the iceberg. He's going to buy more. He will eventually be an activist investor, and he wants to make some policy changes. So the interesting thing about this whole transaction to me is both the free speech element, how much he has openly been I fucking hate the new CEO, and like I said, the timeline. So the filing. So while it was made public today, official today, the filing of this actually happened on March 14th. So it's such a large stake in the way, it has to process through and file through the SEC. The SEC published it today, Elon 9.2%. But he made this move on March 14th. So $3 billion play, chips in the middle. I'm just taking over this fucking company.
Jesus.
$3 billion. It's supposed an astronomical number. And so in theory, Elon could have bought it, and acquired the stock officially on March 14th. Keeps quiet, obviously, and the SEC files through the SEC. Stock goes nuts. He could theoretically just offload it and make billions of dollars just because the stock's up 25% since the news was announced. Most people don't think he did that. Most people think that he's coming for Twitter, and he's gonna. And that was the other part of the timeline that I thought was interesting. So he made this move on March 14th. On March 25th, he said, March 24th, he's been firing off about Twitter a lot. Okay, so on March 24th, he puts a poll out there. Should the Twitter algorithm be open sourced? meaning like, hey, everybody, like just calling for more general transparency of how Twitter, how like the tweets that you see end up on your timeline. So more just transparency. He tweeted that out. Basically, I think it was like 75% of those polls agreed with him. And then he also said that on 3/26, he put out another poll, okay? Given that Twitter serves as the de facto public town square, failing to adhere to free speech principles fundamentally undermines our democracy. What should be done? And
I saw that one.
Okay, so then he puts out that poll, and then he follows it with, is a new platform needed? Okay, so and he had talked about like openly, publicly before, and he said, and on 3/25, so all around, so he had the 3/24, 3/25, 3/26 is when he is doing all these kind of free speech, public. Should it be more transparent? Should you have free speech? Should you or how important free speech is? And then he said that free speech this is on 3/25 now. Free speech is essential to the functioning democracy. Do you believe that Twitter rigorously adheres to this principle? 70.4% answered no. But again, this is after he's already made the big push. He's already put down the $3 billion to acquire all the 73.5 million shares. And then the follow-up to that poll, where it is, does Twitter rigorously adhere to this principle, when everybody said no, or 70.4% of the people said no, he said the consequences of this poll will be important. Please vote carefully. So there had been all this speculation and talk, well, what's Elon doing? And he had floated out the idea of starting his own, basically his own Twitter, his own new social media platform. Well, we've seen a lot of that, okay, recently. Trump has like Truth or whatever he's calling his. There's the other video one that's supposed to be competitive with YouTube called Rumble. Then there's like a few of these, okay? And I would say that all of them kind of fail in a way, but there's a marketplace for ideas where people feel disenfranchised or disenchanted with Twitter's censorship policies, that they're moving over to these other ones, and they become like, more of a right-wing echo chamber. And that's no good either. Like the whole point of having what Elon describes as a public square is to have like everybody be able to engage and see the same dialogue, which has not been the case. Like everyone's kind of factioned off. That's why he's calling for like an open source algorithm. So if you can't create your own and you can't beat them, like Elon himself has been suspended by Twitter before for, I can't remember what exactly. If you can't beat them, buy them. And that's kind of the move he's doing. It is a big nuts move.
Hey, real quick though, Chief, in case Elon gets in some trouble, he should maybe think about Upstart.
Well, he's gotten rid of all of his worldly possessions. Did you know that too,
No,
about
I did
Elon?
not.
He doesn't own any property anymore. He doesn't own shit except for like his stake in Twitter and Tesla and all that. So.
Well, okay. Well, I guess maybe not.
Nobody else can really afford to do that. If you're a regular person, you got to have credit. You got to get your credit in line. You got to get your finances in line. The only place to go is Upstart.
Yeah. So say goodbye to high interest credit card debt. It's one of the first steps towards taking financial independence, but the interest month to month can feel like you're in a never ending hamster wheel, and that's where Upstart comes in. Upstart powered personal loans that can help you pay down your high interest debt all online, which is simple and easy to understand payment terms. Upstart has helped over 1.8 million customers on their path to financial freedom. Whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high interest debt, or funding personal expenses, Upstart can help you get one fixed monthly payment with a clear payoff date. Upstart knows you're more than just a credit score, so rather than looking at your credit score alone, Upstart's model considers other factors like your income, employment, and other information provided in your loan application to find you a smarter rate for your loan. You can check your rate within minutes for loans between $1,000 to $50,000 without impacting your credit score, and you can even receive these funds as fast as one business day after accepting your loan. So don't wait and check your rate today at upstart.com/Eddie. That's upstart.com/Eddie, EDDIE. Check your rate today. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know that we sent you. One more time, loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/Eddie and start being smarter about your debt today. All right.
And then, there's, like I said, there's not really any strong individual investor in Twitter right now. It's more so these hedge funds. So he's the largest at 9.2. Vanguard has about 8.8. Morgan Stanley has 8.76. Our old buddy BlackRock has 6.48. And there's another firm called State Street, which has 4.5%. So those are the principal owners of Twitter right now. Those are the big ones. So Elon can, with his 9.2%, he can work with these other large shareholders to say, hey, I want to be elected chairman of the board. And he can lay out being like, look at what I've done for Tesla, some of these other companies, and look at our growth and monetization, among other things. So if you want, he doesn't even have to make it political if he doesn't want to, but he could say, I'd like to be chairman of the board. He could, and he could rally support behind the scenes. The board votes, hey, Elon at his 9.2, he's now the chairman. His first move might be to get rid of the current CEO, change management, because he has outwardly kind of hated this guy. So this guy's name is Parag Agrawal. So Parag Agrawal, and I'm definitely pronouncing his name incorrectly. I'm trying my best. But he's the guy who took over for Jack Dorsey, and starting in December of 2021, so 4 months ago, I mean, he must have like his own Vin dog. He started memeing this guy to death in a way that might hit close to home for you.
How so?
He photoshopped Agrawal into wearing Joseph Stalin garb. How do you feel about that?
I don't support that. As a man who's been in similar shoes.
Right, yeah. So Red Ed and Red Agrawal, because, if Elon's big thing is, and I've said this before on Sirius too, like years ago, where I'm like, I don't think people should necessarily be censored on this. Like, this is kind of almost like a public utility, like the telephone or like the soapbox public square, but you can just do it. It's at scale, right? There's millions and millions and millions of users. And so he's saying, like, free speech really needs to be allowed, and there shouldn't be censorship on Twitter. And the CEO of Twitter is kind of taken like the opposite approach historically. So in 2018, before he was CEO, he was with Twitter, but he wasn't. Jack Dorsey was still running things. He said Twitter should focus less on thinking about free speech, but thinking about how times have changed. So it's like, free speech, not the most important thing. Then he said, where our role is particularly emphasized is who can be heard, and increasingly our role is moving towards how we recommend content and how we direct people's attention. That is kind of a scary power for one entity to have, in my opinion. Being like, you know what? We don't like what you people are talking about, so we're just going to flip the switch on and rewrite the code of this algorithm, and we're going to decide what is popping up on people's feeds. We're going to decide what people can talk about. We're going to decide what happens to people who don't like what we say.
Well, that's what's in Instagram, and a lot of other platforms have been doing that for a while, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I don't think, look at what happened to Donald Trump, for example. One of the biggest users, president of the United States, and you can have your opinion about Donald Trump, but to me, it almost doesn't matter what he says. He should be allowed to say it, and so it's kind of crazy that these tech companies can just silence the president of the United States and limit him to press releases, like Photoshop press releases, almost like what Team Portnoy does. Like that's the only thing that they can do. And I just find that to be odd. At best, it's odd that they're like, yeah, we're going to do that, but then they have other really strange, offensive content. And it's like, to me, it's almost like someone should go to these companies and be like, you can just it must cost them so much money to employ all these people who are searching for words, themes, harassment, bullying, whatever. that it's like an impossible job. Like to imagine having to monitor everything that's on YouTube. Impossible. The amount of videos that are out there, how often they're uploaded. Same thing with Twitter, Facebook, everything. So if I were them and they have, I'll look up what this law is called, but they're put into this sort of thing where it's like, hey, like if you're a telephone company and you have a terrorist cell, okay, and they're plotting and organizing and talking over the phone. Well, they're using your service to plot a terrorist attack. You're not liable for that. Verizon, whoever. Like you're not, like it's not your responsibility to monitor and prevent people from using your platform in a way that you wouldn't prescribe or want, right? Like they want that taken away, but Verizon can't be sued because someone planned a terrorist attack or a murder or something on their platform. And social media companies, there's a law, I'm blanking on the law, but they're subject to that same, they're put in that same class. So if something is plotted or planned or something bad happens because of activity on your platform, you're not liable for that. So they have no ramifications or no justifications for censoring people from a place where it's like, hey, this really hurts our stock. Like we could be sued. It could be this, it could be that. There's none of that really, none of those threats really exist for these big tech companies. It's all just, do they want, it's almost like they're having their own moral, ethical code as to why they're doing it. But then they also then you're having a few small voices can effectively control the narrative for the entire country or world.
Yeah.
So, and it just comes down to do you want to live in a place or want to live in a world where that is a reality? And I personally just think that that's not right. I think Elon's probably onto something here with, you should have an open source algorithm and it should be, more fair. I don't know what the right word necessarily is, but just let it rip. Let it be the Wild West. And then if people have terrible ideas or terrible thoughts and it's seen publicly, I think maybe, sometimes I wonder, because now it's like all the polling data for 2024, Trump's like running away with it. Like he's up 11 points in a potential head-to-head against Kamala Harris. He's up, I think it's 8 points over Joe Biden in these different polls.
But here's the thing, though, man.
Mm-hmm.
People are just so dumb. Like, when does that become a problem?
Dumb people?
Yeah.
Well, hand up.
But I'm not saying like that. I'm saying dumb people who are like causing these bigger problems, like who are actually like causing chaos.
That they're being duped or something, you mean?
Yes. That's my point. Like, we've talked about this before on Sirius. I still remember it. Because I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, I don't know what to do when it comes to these random accounts posting these clearly doctored photos or snippets of videos or information, and they just keep getting these people sucked in who don't know any better, and wherever they are. What do you do?
To
you just leave it there and let these people, just let the inmates run the asylum in some cases?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes?
I think so.
So
there's been dumb people since the beginning of time, and there always will be dumb people. And it's on those people.
Yeah.
But
that's hard. That's hard to come to grips with.
Okay. So let me ask you familiar with, I think it's Copernicus, right? Is he the guy or Galileo? Okay. Galileo was deemed a heretic by the people in charge for saying, I think the earth goes around the sun, not the other way around. So they threatened to kill him. I think he ended his life under house arrest. And it's all because he went against the power that was the Catholic Church. And he was right. So I think that you need to have, and then same thing with Solzhenitsyn wrote The Gulag Archipelago. That book, probably more than anything else, is responsible for the demonization and the collapse of the Soviet Union. There's all sorts of factors, but that book came out in 1974. He wrote it. It's a long, long book, and he wrote it and like really diagrammed what was going on in the Soviet Union. Okay. Because he was sent to one of those gulag prison camps. And it was like, holy shit, he won the Nobel Prize and, you know, all these different things. And if he had to filter that through the Russian government to get it published, he's murdered. Okay. So I feel like it's, in general, the amount of innovation, the amount of being able to think whatever you want to think and put things through outweighs the dumb people that get duped by things. Like, you have to be able to have a discussion of free ideas and like, be able to think.
I thought there was a star where it's like, oh, this, like, what would they put in the bottom of tweets? Like, oh, check these facts. Like, you know, fact checker. Like, this is not confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought that was a good step in the right direction, so people could at least look into it.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't know who should be in charge of
who's
that.
checking the checkers.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Listen, I'm not saying what I'm saying is 1,000% correct, because it's not. There are holes in what I'm saying as well, but my problem is just how, like, sinister some of these people could be for either their own personal gain, financial gain, or just because they just want to see the world burn. And I just don't know what. But
that could be, you could probably apply that to a lot of the people in charge too. The people who are making those decisions might be doing it for manipulation purposes too. Like, and you can say, like, even now, like, I don't even think it's controversial now, but that Hunter Biden laptop story where they pulled it down from the New York Post and they hid it,
and they're just found to be.
And 2 years later, Washington Post and the New York Times were like, "Oh yeah, that was real."
Yeah,
so
I know
that was just manipulation, and they're like, this is going to hurt our side, so let's kill it.
Yeah, I get it, and it sucks we have to use political examples, but those are the
That's why I tried to use Copernicus.
Yeah, I know, and it, like, those are on the most forefront. But like, you get where we're coming from.
Yeah,
and but I think that's where we're at in society, where it's like, it's so much of a, are you going to step in here kind of thing? Like, someone does something wrong that, you know, that maybe they shouldn't, it's not against the company's policy where they shouldn't get fired, but it's all like, hey, turn up the screws. Like, hey, are you going to fire this? Like, are you going to step in here? And I think at these points, I mean, these companies were just worried that they were going to have blood on their hands, where it's like.
Yeah. I wonder if I'm 35 now, and I watched The Big Short again recently.
Shocker.
Okay. But it's like, I wonder if I am overly cynical because of 2008. And you look at, like, what, you know, they had those things as CDOs, which were shit mortgages and things that they couldn't sell. So they pile all the shit together, and then they reclassify it as something else, and they bring it down, you know, to a ratings agency who's supposed to be, you know, opening up the books, as White Sox Dave likes to say, and go through all the paperwork and give them a proper rating. Well, the ratings agencies weren't doing any of that, because they were getting fees from the banks to rate them 92, 93% AAA rated, even though they probably knew full well that those things were complete shit. And I kind of think that level of thinking can be applied to speech. Like, everybody has their own motivations. Everybody does.
Yep.
Nobody is without motivation.
I agree.
And bias. So I think the only way to combat that is to make it as much of an even playing field as possible by restricting nobody. And then let the best ideas win. And you know, it's not always going to play out perfectly. You might have some psychopath that, you know, manipulates people and gets into power, and that could be bad. But I ultimately think that, you know, having free speech is the same as being able to have free thought. Like, you have to be able to think things through and talk things through and try to come up, you know, with the right answer, as opposed to being like, let me tell you why you're wrong and why I'm smarter than you and this and that. And it's just like, you know, smart people get things wrong all the time. They get things wrong all the time. And it's better to just, you know, try to, I would say, make it transparent and let the best ideas win, and ultimately find, like, that's my biggest problem, I think, with society in this era, is that it is impossible to find out what is true. And I think the only way to find out what is true is by having free and open debate. And memes and tweets and everything like that kind of fuck it up and make it more difficult. And I'm very scared of, like, deep fakes and things like that. And
dude, that's so fucked up.
I know. So that's one of those things where it's like, you know, if there are deep fakes, and we've said this before too, that maybe we need to look into, the laws around fraud. Like if you're committing a deep fake with malice for some purpose, and that you might have to be able to be arrested and thrown in jail for that. Like if and again, like they'd probably have to rewrite some of the laws around that. But if you're participating in that and you're trying to say like, no, this is freedom of expression, I would say, well, that's kind of like yelling fire in a movie theater. It's not necessarily freedom of expression. Like you have to be constantly striving towards the truth.
Yeah. And
if you're not, and if you're willingly and willfully participating in deep fakes or misinformation or disinformation, and like that was, Rogan had that point in one of his, he issued that apology where he's like, I have a real problem with that term, misinformation, disinformation, because it's like, a year ago, all these other, if you said it was created, Corona was created in a lab, that was, you're kicked out, you're deplatformed.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, actually, we think that's true. The Hunter Biden thing. Oh, these people are, this is complete slander. They're trying to steal the election, blah, blah, blah. Disinformation, misinformation. That's true. It turned out to be true. So it's almost like, I don't know. I think you have to just let the truth, like the cream rise to the top kind of thing. And I think by having open source and have everything be more open, that's a good thing. And maybe this is a step towards that. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know what his plans are. But if he is a big free speech advocate, which he has been, and he's memeing people to death, I mean, he had a quote saying, I do whatever I think is most likely to ensure that the future is good for humanity. That was Elon. So
I think he said that too, where there was a tweet months ago where someone said they would take this much money to stop world hunger. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, like if Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos stepped up and did it, he's like, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Tell me where to send it.
Right.
And they're like, like the guy, like,
right, exactly.
But I think he's actually, from what I read, he's like progressing towards doing that, right? I don't know.
I don't know about that specifically, but that's like another one of those things where it's like there was a UN goal to lift, I can't remember, like to reduce absolute poverty by X percentage by the year 20, I think it was by 2025. They hit that goal by like 2015. Like they smashed it.
Oh yeah.
So there's way less people that are hungry. Remember when we were kids and you would flip on and it'd be like, oh my God, look how these people in Ethiopia, look at these people in Rwanda, like they're doing, India, they're doing terribly. They got 25 cents a day, fucking sure, like, and now you don't see as many of those commercials anymore. While there are still people starving and still people in poverty, nowhere near what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of that has to do with the growth of China and India, where those two countries have, they've modernized so rapidly that there's so many people. There's some kind of, I'm getting this number is going to be directionally correct, but it's something like 100,000 people a day are lifted out of poverty. A day. Every day. Like that's unbelievable.
That's good.
That's right. That's good. So, and it's, and the thing is, like, to your point, like things, I'm going to start doing this. I wrote this blog on Friday and it related to our dog walk about pulling water out of thin air. I'm just going to start putting good news out there on Friday. Like that thing where 100,000 people get lifted out of poverty every day. How is that not a headline every day? Like that is fucking incredible. Yeah. So, infant mortality is down.
Good idea.
Globally.
I might, I'm going to join you.
Okay.
But I'm going to do it about the city of Chicago.
That would be great too.
We got too much doom and gloom, Dante.
Mm-hmm.
We got too much.
Oh, I know.
we got too much. There's going to have a zero population in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be Dante's fault.
Yeah. Well.
Kidding, Dante.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's lots of good things going on in the world and in Chicago too. So let's start. Yeah. Good News Friday.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like that, Chief.
Yep.
It's a good idea. What's funny is when he tweeted that Town Square tweet, I was reading somewhere on Reddit. I don't know if it was just general Reddit or
Elon Musk Reddit.
Yeah, maybe it was Rogan's Reddit. I don't know. Wherever it was and I was reading that when they were talking about that, and they're like, if this fucking guy He's like so unhappy with Twitter. Why didn't he just fucking buy it? He's got the money. And when I saw this news, I was driving. I was like, I wonder how that guy who said that's feeling.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what he did.
He really is something else, though.
He is.
Elon. Like,
he is.
I feel like he's becoming more and more. Maybe I'm just seeing it more. There's a couple people who like DM me like habitually about like just hating Elon. I'm like, I'm not like some big Elon advocate, but it's like, Jesus Christ, everybody like chill out. And maybe it is because he's venturing into some of these, taking these controversial takes like free speech is good. But, you know, we got the rocket ship, he's got Tesla, he's got, you know, he did PayPal. Like there, you know, I've seen like he kind of played into it, which makes me think it's a joke. But there are people out there who think like he was one of the creators of Bitcoin. You know, so that the Satoshi, like nobody knows who it is. There are people out there who think it was him. And he's been a pretty big advocate, I would say, of crypto too. So it's like you know, and it just brings you back to that quote. I do whatever I think is most likely to ensure the future is good for humanity. So he's trying to make it more green through Teslas and, you know, green energy. He's tweeting about green energy kind of all the time. He had one today about how wind and solar outputs are higher than ever. The yields are higher than ever. He's doing space exploration, which, you know, you can say like, who fucking cares? But historically, like there's been all sorts of innovation that's in everyday use that came from the Apollo missions. So like that could be good. And then, you know, we'll see what happens with his free speech advocacy through Twitter. Like I think that would be very interesting. Like I think people should be allowed to say what's on their mind, and as long as you're not willfully committing fraud, you're good. So we got to look into parity law, you and I, because that's how we would get fucked. We're like, wow, we're just joking. I was joking. Yeah. So
definitely got to look into that.
Yeah.
Okay. That was interesting stuff.
Yep. So it should be something to watch here the next few months, because if he does take over, if he does become chairman of the board or something like that, or an activist investor, then we'll see if he forces out this new CEO. And
such a power move.
Oh yeah.
We couldn't get drafted in the draft because no one thought of it, but
yeah,
that's a power move.
It's one of those power moves that's so powerful that it is outside the realm of brains like ours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we drafted actual power moves that have happened in
history,
real society, that's up there.
That is up there. We should do an episode on this guy named Carl Icahn. Have you ever heard of him? He's like probably 80-something years old now.
No.
But he does this like all the time.
Oh, really?
He goes in and sees a company that, you know, he thinks is not doing well or for whatever reason, and he buys up enough shares to be like, I'm the captain now. and he either breaks it all up and splits it off and sells off the parts, or he, you know, changes policies in the company and tries to turn it around. But he does this like, it's something like pirate or marauding.
We should definitely do an episode.
Yeah, we should do an episode on a car. I think HBO or somebody might have done a documentary recently about it. Yeah, but he's been doing it for like 45 years. Like
we'll look into it.
Yeah. So, you know, and then, you know, Twitter isn't monetized well. I think everybody who uses the platform knows that. So he might just say like, look at this platform that has all of these people who are engaging with it all of the time, and they can't make any money off of it. They're fucking idiots. I'm going to take over and make money.
You're going to get people to buy Twitter Blue?
I don't know what the fuck Twitter Blue is.
That's a paid subscription thing.
But what does it do?
Nobody knows.
Exactly.
Nobody knows.
And maybe if Elon comes in, we'll be able to
figure it out,
do some Twitter Spaces and upload it into a podcast RSS feed, no problem, which is what I've been asking for a long time.
Elon, always remember who was on the forefront and was buying Teslas in 2021. Always remember that.
Yeah, so
there should be a discount.
You're saying we should stop doing the red ed stuff and put you in a Tesla and put you like Photoshop Elon Musk next to you in the Tesla?
I should be I should be looked at highly for that move.
Yep. Okay. This is why we need free speech to counteract this type of stuff.
All right, Chief. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. That's it for today. We'll see you all tomorrow.